Hey guys, how's it going? Welcome back. So this is my brand new Stoeger X3 tack, and today we're going to take it apart. I'm kind of curious to see what makes it tick. Now, I've mentioned in the review this thing is extremely pallet picky, and even my Stoeger 830 was never this picky for pellets. So there's got to be something up in Funnyland with this thing. So the first thing we got to do is get these side covers off, and what we're trying to locate here, actually a knife for that, because I don't want it shattering in my face. There we go. So I'll give you some more light if I can. And these Stoeger plates is what we got to take off, and we need a blade that can get under this cap so we can pop it off. Just like that. Now, there's no print diagrams available for these guns that I've found yet, so this is going to be your print diagram. Now, these screws up front, one on each side, these need to be adjusted from time to time, because if they work loose, it messes with your accuracy. So I'm going to check them first. Yeah, that actually could have been snugger. Alright. So we're going to go through the entire process of taking this thing apart. Yeah, that could have been snugger too. Never know, maybe that had a little bit of play with it. Springer guns are really funky. Any loose screw of any of these three throws your accuracy right out the window. This is why you need to tighten them up after every couple hundred shots. Anyways, I'm going to take you through taking this apart. We're going to take the piston out, spring, everything, clean up all the factory garbage that's left in there, and lube it fresh and clean. Okay, so there's our stock off. Pretty thick built, well built stock. I like how they do their frame channels inside. It's pretty neat. Anyways, so that's out of the way. So we've got this safety mechanism in here, and this is something we got to watch out for. We also have the spring on the trigger, and it looks like we can actually take this part apart first. Alright. Now, when we're punching this through, do this exactly how I'm doing it. So you just need a punch that's a little smaller diameter than that pin. And you don't need to pound it hard. Just a little tap just to get it started. Don't punch it all the way through. Now, because I don't have a spring compressor, and I know this doesn't have a lot of preload on it because it is a non-PAL gun, I'm still going to hold it as steady as I can. And I'm going to have to punch that a little further. I just don't want this thing to maybe fly apart in case I'm wrong about this piece. Okay, looks like I was right. But it's all one unit. Okay, so we need to put this pin back in. This is a loose pin, which is fine. But we want a pin in there nonetheless, because this thing is going to actually want to pop. So we need a wrench that'll fit that sucker. It is slotted for a wrench, so we just need to have the right sized wrench for this. None of those are it. So when in doubt, a crescent wrench works just as good. Alright, that's out. Now this pin is still in here. Wow, there's like no preload at all. Like, nothing. Wow! That's crazy. First time I ever took one of these apart that had no preload. But it's nice that this whole unit is together in one unit, because we didn't want to mess with this anyway. So that's cool design. Kudos Stoeger. Right on. Alright. So next thing we gotta do is break that a little bit. Now one thing you're going to notice here is you don't have a locking set screw to stop this screw from budging. Okay? And one of the things that really concerns me when it comes to guns is this thing can work loose with use, and that throws off accuracy. And that was a little too loose. This should actually be like way snugger, like a lot snugger. Wow, that has room for the forks to actually spread in. That's wild that it's that loose. That is going to definitely explain some accuracy issues. Because when these screws are loose, it does throw you off. So that can explain why we're having such a picky time with this gun. So make note of that. Now, I've got to okay, so we do have a bushing on either side of this. And that slides out. Alright. Out with the piston. So, we have our typical seal, and we got a lot of factory gunk in here, like grease and stuff that really, ugh. So, take ourselves a clean rag, and we're going to clean this. That actually looks pretty good. Okay, that can go aside there. And yeah, we're going to have to clean the inside of the tube as well. So with your flat blade screwdriver jammed in here, you should be able to get enough of the rag in there that you can twist and twist, and you just keep twisting this for a minute. Now we can get it into a nice tight fit, get all the way down there. Alright, woo, brand spanking new down there. That's what you call clean, guys. I don't know how well you're seeing that, but that is super clean now. Alright. Now, these look like... it looks like they're going to actually just stay there. We'll leave them alone. Alright, now's a good time to take a really good look at our muzzle. I want to check the crown on this to really take a really good look. And as I mentioned in the video, this thing has got a beautiful crown, so that is no excuse. Okay. Now we do have a cheesy little metal spring guide. And the spring is not directional, so it doesn't matter which way it goes back in, so no big there. Okay, that's our take apart. I'm taking a break, and I'll be right back and we'll reassemble. Alright guys, reassembly. So, we're going to need some silicone chamber lube oil. That's a biggie. And we want to put some in behind the piston on the seal. Now, a lot of guys, they have different kind of little grease things that they do for their little quieting down their guns. And although that may work fine on some of the PAL springers out there, but every 3 years these guys are actually having to take all that junk back out and clean it all off because it starts to gum up. And I don't want to go through all that stuff. So I just use silicone chamber lube oil. And we're just going to slide that in there. Pop in our spring. That's in there. Now we're still going to have to lube the front end. Okay, because the front of that seal needs some lube as well, but not very much. Okay, so the next thing we've got to do is put our trigger network back in. It is great that this gun has absolutely no preload, so you do not need a spring compressor with it. So, now I don't know about my other Stoeger. One of these days I'll do a teardown video on it for you guys, and we'll see if it's made the same way or not, because it's better to be safe than sorry, if you know what I mean. Well, that's as far as that goes, actually. So right about there. Okay, so trigger network's back together. So we can put our pin back in. Have to loosen that just a little bit. That's it. So don't tighten this all the way first. And don't over tighten this, there's no need to. You just got to snug it up so it's flush. That's it. You over tighten that, you're going to bust something. Okay? Big thing. Alright, so now I want to shift the piston. Okay, it's lined up. This goes right back in the slot. It's only going to go one way. This back over the forks is a little interesting. Okay, so you got to kind of give it a twist and push at the same time. I don't know how much of that you saw. I'm doing the best I can. Once you get it started in there, close it up so you can get it all the rest of the way in. Okay, that's really tight. That still moves nice and free. That's good. And that is not going to allow any side play. A little bit more snug. Yeah, see, it already backs off just a little bit. I think it'll be okay though, I think. But there's no way to stop that from moving out on us a little bit, but it's screwed in all as far as it can go. You could probably use red Loctite, which would keep that locked pretty good for a long time. But I think we should be fine with this. So, next thing we got to do is get this back in. And that is going to be super tricky, looks like. Yep. Yep, that's nice and flush now. Now, I recommend putting in these front screws first. Just make sure they're started really good. Don't snug them up yet. Okay, now they're going to go snug. And make sure they're really snug. Okay, that is super snug. And our last one. We're going to re-crony the gun too. Alright, that is not going to move. Alright, back in with the caps. There is a left and a right side because of the Stoeger name. Okay. So now, while it's cocked, I'm going to put a couple of drops of chamber lube down the front. Safety decock it. You want to run this in and out a few times just so that it can get on the front of that seal. Okay, now I'm going to fire a couple of shots just out of box just so I can spray out some of what I just threw in this thing. Now if you've watched my unboxing and crony video, we went through a bunch of different pellets. And so we saw the different speeds and whatnot. So we're going to probably see a bit of a difference now that that grease and crud and stuff that we took off the piston is now gone. So you should see actually a big difference. Okay, I think that should be enough. Alright, let's set the chroning back up. We'll set up the camera for you guys. Alright, now let's swing the camera around here. Just let me move some stuff out of the way. Alright. There we go. So, let's flip some pellets through this thing. Now the pellets we're going to use in this are the ones that it seems to start to group with now, which are, excuse me, the RWS Superdomes 378. 380. 381. 385. So it's going to take a few shots to get this thing to settle itself down again. 404. See, now we're getting our speeds back up. Everything's starting to mush together and move around in there. Alright, let's try a 7.4 grain pellet just to see what happens. I'm curious because these things fit like really sloppy in the barrel, so they'll probably zing out. Yeah, 502, they zing out. Because they just fit so loose, which is another reason why the thing does not like Craftsman pellets. Great for speed, lousy for accuracy. 495. Let's drop another one down. 493. 507. Okay, let's go back to the RWS. Now the RWS pellets, they have a bit of a fat skirt on them, which actually does slug the gun down a little bit. 417. Now we're moving back up. But you can also preseat the RWS pellets. 423. See, we're climbing back up. The gun's getting back to normal. So this is a normal thing to happen. So I'm going to show you what happens when you preseat a pellet that has actually got a fat skirt on it. .455. Let's do that again. .464, I think. Yeah, 464. This is just preseating the pellet. All I'm using is the front of a Robinson screwdriver. I'll show you the bit in a minute that I'm using. .470. Okay, let's do that without preseating now. So now I'm going to go back, and I'm going to go back through all those pellets again now that I've cleaned this thing and tightened everything up. 397. See, unseated is 397. .380. Now these are a heavier than normal pellet. These are an 8. What are these things? 8.3 grain. So usually you don't run a pellet that heavy. 414. 397. Okay, so you saw we just put a couple of drops down. We ran it through. So I'm going to put a couple more drops, which generally you don't do for, like, you know, about every 1,000 rounds is what you're supposed to do these at. But I'm going to do a few extra drops just in case we didn't get it good enough into that area, because that piston chamber area needs to be lubed. So I'm firing a couple shots at the box again. I don't want to spray this stuff over top my crony. And we'll fire 2 more shots at the box. That came out thumping. Alright, so our last one was 397. $353. $381. $378. $377. That one came back out of the trap. $406. Once this oil works through back out the front again, the lube stuff properly, and there's nothing left for it to blow out the front, it'll settle it down. Dual, 406. $390s. Now, the speeds might kind of bug some people. It's rated for 495, but hey, come on. These are heavy pellets. And the heavier the pellet you use, you slow your gun down. 397. Okay, we're pretty good there. Let's try another Crossman Super Lucy. That's what I like to call them in these guns, because they just lay there. See, they'll blast out over 5 because they sit so bloody loose, and you're not going to hit the broadside of a barn with these things. 474. That one actually sat a little tighter in there. 511. I think we've pretty much got all the stuff blown out the front of this thing. $478. Alright, let's go 2 more shots of these RWS pellets. Oh, we got an error. $405. Alright, we're good to go. Zoom out. Okay, so it's going to take more shooting, obviously, but now we've taken it apart, we've totally cleaned it all out of all the factory stuff. Being that these things are built in China, there's probably some kind of weird goopy stuff on the piston, and we want to get that out of there anyways, and it looks pretty gross. So, and so the insides of the chamber, so it'd be a good idea to get that stuff out of there. But we're now completely relubed with silicone chamber lube. About every 1,000 shots, we just put a couple drops down the top and give it a couple pumps. So once you get a few drops down into the breech hole, just safety decock, okay, like this. So you'll have the safety on, push it in, just hold this, pull the trigger, don't let go, and just pump it a few times like this, okay. Don't go all the way down. Just pump it a few times like this. Okay, let that stuff work around and it'll swirl itself around. Fire a bunch of shots. You're going to have some weird stuff going on because you're going to be blowing some of that stuff through the barrel. Okay, so it's going to actually lubricate the inside of your barrel as it's shooting some of that stuff out the front. But that's how springers are actually lubed, is through the front exhaust port. So you have to expect that because it's got to be able to lube the inside walls where that seal smacks every time, you know, like ka-chong, ka-chong, right? It's got to have that pressure and that seal built up. And you got to keep that seal pliable, okay? Because if it dries out, this is bad, okay? Very, very bad, in fact. But I was impressed taking this apart myself that there was zero preload on the spring. That's awesome. So like I said, when I do take apart my A30, we will find out if it has preload or not. But you are very safe to take this apart. No special tools required, okay, other than something to punch the back pin out with. Okay, which all I used was something like this. This is just actually a Robinson narrowed screwdriver. So any narrow punch, like a 1/8 punch to pop the pin. So, and we know now you can just completely pop it straight out, and then you undo that big nut that we showed you with either a pair of these or a proper fitting wrench. Remember, when we tighten back up, once it hits flush, that's it. Don't try and snug it any tighter. A, it doesn't need to be, and B, if you do, you're going to bust something, okay? So, keep that in mind. And then make sure, of course, these front screws go back in first and that you tighten them up really snug. And same with this one, really snug. And when you have it apart and you're putting it back together, the one screw that holds the wrist pin, because that is the wrist pin screw, make sure that screw is really tight when you initially put it back in. It'll back off about a half a turn like we found. I don't think it's going to come out much more than that, but it is as tight as we can get it, and it doesn't have a locker. I don't know why these things are not being put in anymore. Well, actually, on these guns anyways, even a couple of my Crosman guns, they don't have the locking secondary small screw. You know what I'm talking about if you take apart guns. And it should have that, because then this way you can set the tension, lock it, and it can't back off, right? This allows it to actually back off a bit. And, you know, I mean, it's not going to come out of the gun. I mean, that'll never happen. But, you know, the thing is you shouldn't have to retighten your wrist screw, you know, every so often. So that's just nothing but a pain in the butt. But otherwise, it's shooting good. I think it's shooting about where it was before with the RWS Superdomes. I'd have to recheck my video on the Crony video to compare, but you know, it's doing all right. And the Crosman pellets fit so sloppy, they just fly out of the barrel like crazy, which is not good for the gun, by the way, because technically those 7.4s are way too light for this gun. Even though it's a non-PAL gun, it causes piston slam. That's not good for the gun at all. But that's our take apart, clean up, and reassembly. Thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed the video and got a lot out of it, guys. I enjoyed taking that apart. That was fun. And it gave me something new for the afternoon and something new for you guys. So, see you on the next one. Ciao.